Imagine this blood-soaked horror. A rebellion so savage it turned Virginia's peaceful plantations into a slaughterhouse overnight. Nat Turner's 1831 uprising wasn't just a spark. It was a raging inferno of enslaved fury, hacking through the South with axes and vengeance. They fought for freedom with a ferocity that'd make your skin crawl, only to see their dreams drown in a tidal wave of gore. This is history at its most brutal, and we're plunging headfirst into the chaos that shook a nation to its core. Step back to the early 1800s, when America wore a mask of progress, hiding a rotting truth. Slavery wasn't just a stain. It was the backbone of the South, a machine fueled by human misery. Virginia, with its endless tobacco fields, was a kingdom of chains. By 1830, over 450,000 enslaved people lived there, outnumbering whites in places like Southampton County. They woke to whips, slept to exhaustion, their lives a cycle of labor and loss. Families ripped apart auctions, kids sold like livestock, women violated without recourse. It was hell on earth. But beneath the overseer's boots, a pulse of defiance beat. Songs carried coded hope, glances held plans, and in one man that pulse became a war cry. Nat Turner wasn't your average slave. Born in 1800 on a Southampton plantation, he was a rare breed, literate. Thanks to an enslaver's family who taught him to read, the Bible became his weapon, its verses twisting into visions of judgment. He saw blood streaking the sky, a solar eclipse in February 1831 whispering divine orders. Nat called himself a prophet, anointed to smash the shackles. By August, he'd rallied a crew, 5 at first, men broken by bondage but unbroken in spirit. On August 21st, 1831, under a moonless sky, they struck. No begging, no bargaining. Just raw, unfiltered rage unleashed on a sleeping world. It kicked off at the Travis farm, Nat's own prison. They crept in, silent as shadows, and butchered Joseph Travis, his wife, and their children in their beds. This wasn't random. It was deliberate, a first blow against a system that owned them. From there, the rebellion exploded. They moved like a storm, hitting plantation after plantation, swelling to nearly 70 as enslaved men and women grabbed pitchforks, knives, anything to join the fight. In 2 days, they killed about 60 whites. Farmers, wives, kids, no one was spared. Blood soaked the dirt. Screams pierced the dawn. For those 48 hours, freedom wasn't a dream. It was a blade in their hands, cutting through centuries of pain. The South snapped awake in terror. News spread like wildfire. Plantation owners barricaded doors, militias saddled up, and by August 23rd, the counterattack hit hard. State troops, local vigilantes, even federal soldiers from Fort Monroe descended on Southampton, near Jerusalem. Today's Cortland, Nat's crew faced a wall of muskets. They were fierce but outmatched, scattering into the swamps. Some died swinging, others were dragged away in chains. Nat vanished, hiding in a cave for 6 weeks, scavenging to survive, until October 30th, when a farmer's dog sniffed him out. The uprising was crushed, but the real bloodshed was just starting. Retribution was a massacre. White mobs didn't bother with justice. They hunted. Over 200 black people, most uninvolved, were lynched, beaten, burned. Heads spiked on poles lined the roads, a sick monument to fear. Trials were a sham. 55 rebels faced the gallows, 18 hanged, Nat among them. On November 11th, 1831, he dropped, defiant to the end. His body was hacked apart, skin flayed, skull kept as a souvenir. Virginia's lawmakers pounced, banning slaves from reading, preaching, even whispering in groups. The message was clear: rebellion meant annihilation. Freedom's cost wasn't just lives. It was a deeper dungeon. What lit this fire in Nat? Faith was his torch. He saw God's hand in every shadow, urging him to rise. Slavery's cruelty was a kindling. Whips that scarred backs, babies torn from mothers, a life where dignity was a myth. He wasn't the first to rebel. Gabriel Prosser tried in 1800, Denmark Vesey in 1822. But Nat's fury burned hotter. He didn't just want escape. He wanted revolution, a reckoning for every lash. Scholars still wrestle with him. Was he a madman, a martyr, a monster? To the enslaved, he was a saint. To the enslavers, a nightmare. Either way, he cracked open the South's worst fear, that the oppressed could fight back. The fallout reshaped everything. Southampton became a ghost town of paranoia. Whites slept with guns, saw threats in every glance. The South tightened its grip, building bigger walls around slavery as abolitionists in the North waved Nat's story like a bloody flag. In 1832, Virginia's legislature debated abolition. Some saw the uprising as a wake-up call, but greed and terror won. The nation split wider. Nat's rebellion fueled a fire that blazed into the Civil War decades later. His name lingered, hushed in slave cabins, spat in plantation halls, a specter haunting both sides. Those scars? They're still raw. Drive through Cortland today, and Nat's trail is marked. Quiet signs tracing a path of rage and ruin. His story echoes in our fights over race, power, resistance. It's in books, films, classrooms where we argue what it means. Nat didn't free his people, but he scarred the system, proving it could bleed. His uprising was a howl against despair, a sound that still rattles our bones. And it's not just history. It's a mirror showing what happens when hope turns to havoc. This tale's far from finished. Nat's wildfire didn't just fade. It smoldered, igniting battles we're still waging. How did one man's defiance twist a nation's fate? What price did the survivors pay? Next time, we'll dive deeper into the lives shattered, the laws forged, and the echoes that won't quit. Buckle up, we're not done yet.